Couple of talking points heading into game one. Let's go. Something that we've all thought about and something that we've all been following pretty closely and intimately this whole off-season and preseason cycle, and that's the quarterback. And yes, we got clarity. It's Haynes King. A lot of us speculated that it would be Haynes King, but speculate no longer. We know. How's he going to look? Last time we saw him for a full game was versus Kent State, and I'm of the opinion that he looked very promising in that game. Many of you think the same thing, but there's also a larger than expected portion of people who thought that Haynes King looked bad versus Kent State. It's a first start for a player in a very complex, quote unquote, complex offense. I'm sure it's complex. I haven't seen the playbook. I don't know how it works. But it's apparently really complex, and he was a true redshirt freshman getting in there as a starter for the first time. Showed a lot of promise, being able to wheel and deal on the run, being able to evade pressure. I mean, obviously with Haynes King, the first thing you're going to talk about is his ability to run, but his ability to pass appears to be underrated. A lot of his balls are overthrown from what we've seen. There has been some inaccuracy, and it's usually with overthrown balls, a little bit too much heat. And you know what? I'm glad he has the arm strength, and I think he hones that down once he gets a little bit more seasoned, some more experience. Definitely looked poised in that game. He threw 3 interceptions, couple of bad balls, some you would hope would still be caught by receivers, but nonetheless it was 3 interceptions. How will Haynes King look? What do y'all expect from Haynes King game 1? I expect more than what we saw versus Kent State. I think that having that whole offseason of just being humbled with that injury really will focus a guy in. I think he was more honed in than he's ever been on the playbook, on visualization of what he's going to be doing. I think he was more locked in meetings. Just from what it sounds like, he's a true coach's son, and he even speaks like a coach. Very good head on his shoulders. Looked for him to have a big game versus Sam Houston State. The next point that I would like to mention that I'm sure many of y'all are looking out for is that center position. Layden Robinson suggested that they have a good, healthy battle going on in the center position between Bryce Foster and Matthew Wyckoff. Both are second-year guys fighting for the position. Now, Foster's the higher-rated guy, and he's the guy that started all year last year. But he also hadn't practiced from halfway through spring to about 2.5 weeks into fall camp. First of which being for track, which he throws shot put. He's high-class shot putter. And then second of which he had some non-COVID illness at the start of camp. So a very unfortunate stretch for him of just no reps. Meanwhile, Matthew Wyckoff has gotten praises from the coaching staff, Jimbo and others, just people glowing about him. I mean, when you're the starter for whatever it's been, maybe 5 straight weeks of football practice, what's that, going to be like 25 straight practices, and you're starting to gel, and you're a Texas A&M level center, I mean, I feel like you're going to have some good moments, especially with the kind of reps you're getting against the monsters that Texas A&M's D-line fields. So Matthew Wyckoff is playing very well, but Bryce Foster is clearly the specimen. So it's going to be interesting to see what's going to happen. Is Wyckoff going to end up getting the start? Are they just making Bryce work for it till the bitter end because competition prevents complacency or whatever Jimbo says? I mean, it's probably true. He's probably fighting for his life to get back into that starting lineup. But are we going to see Wyckoff start? Are we going to see Bryce Foster start at left guard, which has been a battle between Moko, Aki, and others? I mean, what is going to happen with those two players? It's very intriguing. I had to lead with the quarterbacks, right? But this center situation is very intriguing, and a lot of people think that with the praise that Matthew Wyckoff has been receiving, that Bryce Foster starting at left guard, which he did play guard in high school, would be the best course of action to make this offensive line the most stout it could possibly be. Because it seems like right tackle and right guard, I mean, we know, it doesn't seem like, we know right tackle, right guard, locked up. Trey Zune has the left tackle position. He's been getting praises since he got here. He was hurt all year last year. He's the only other true tackle on the team. Blake Traynor, I guess you could say he's a true tackle because he's like 6'8" or something, or 6'7". But we know Blake Traynor doesn't have that. He's not really a high-level SEC tackle. No offense to him. He's a great sub, but I don't think you want to go in starting Blake Traynor as he is right now. So the offensive line, the center, what are we going to get from that? That's one of the first things my binoculars are going to be focused in on when I get into Kyle Field this Saturday. So let's move to the defensive side of the ball, and let's start with the obvious one, defensive line. You start 2 new edges, and you start, I think you have rotational guys who were playing last year, but they're new starters to start a game in McKinley Jackson and Isaiah Rakes. So I was surprised to see that Isaiah Rakes was getting all of these starter minutes over Shamar Turner, because Shamar Turner showed a lot of promise last year before he was injured and in the spurts that he played after the injury. I think when you get hurt early in a year, especially when you're a new player, you kind of fall behind a little bit because everything's moving a million miles an hour. And when you get hurt early, I mean, that can mess you up. So before Turner got hurt, especially that Kent State game, we saw some big moments from him. And throughout the year, we saw a couple glimpses here and there. But he's the 5-star guy. He's the guy with all the tools and the talent. Now, Isaiah Rakes, take nothing from him. He's a stalwart. He's 6'2" or 6'1", 325 pounds. He's just a little brick in there. And that's kind of what you want to clog up those internal running lanes. Shamar Turner, big guy, but a little bit more of a hybrid type of body. A&M, I guess, is opting to start 2 of those thick boys right up front in McKinley Jackson and Isaiah Rakes. But the edges are going to be monstrous, and I'm for guys that we haven't seen much of, I am so confident in these edges. I think Fadil Diggs has a chance to be a household name on a national level within the next 4 or 5 years. And obviously I'm talking about the next level. But he could go pro after this year if he has a good enough year because he's a redshirt sophomore. But you put together 2 great years in an Aggie uniform, and you're a kind of guy that plays the position that Fadil Diggs plays, a very highly sought-after position in the NFL, and a position where you can make a lot of noise and a big name for yourself with sacks and living in the backfield. That's where stars are born, and I think Fadil Diggs is on a path to become a star like that. And the other edge, Tumnise Adelier, another one of those weak side edges, kind of in the same breed as the Marvin Leal, a little bit of a hybrid body type, but this guy looks so stout. I mean, I think he's put on at least 30, 40 pounds since he's gotten to College Station, and he is looking scary in the few glimpses we've had of him in the practice video, the footage of him in pads and him running around. We got to see it on the field because that's all we really have on some of these guys right now is that practice footage, high school footage potential. But that starting 4 on the defensive line, that's the most experienced 4 you can field in terms of it being in the college atmosphere, because obviously Diggs and Adelier haven't played much. Those internal guys have played a bunch. Rakes and McKinley Jackson have a ton of SEC mileage, and those guys are leaders you want to have on the field. But don't be surprised if you have Shamar Turner in there more often than not, especially on third downs, because he's definitely the kind of guy that's going to have a deadly pass rush from inside, the dreaded internal pass rush that destroys a pocket. I think Shamar Turner is going to be doing a lot of that, and so is McKinley Jackson. I look at McKinley Jackson, Shamar Turner on third down to be like Justin Matabike vibes, just a freakish athlete at that size, just getting in there, living in the backfield, throwing quarterbacks around. I think the defensive tackle pass rush this year will be as good as it's ever been. And I don't think these guys are necessarily going to be commanding double teams right off the get-go. I think if you kind of keep these guys hidden going into the year a little bit, they have a couple good plays here and there, I think these guys could surprise some people, because you're going to be looking at that freshman defensive line class, and you're going to be looking out like kind of over your shoulders for those guys to be coming in off the sidelines. Like, oh no, is there a Shamar Stewart coming out? Do we have an Anthony Lucas coming out? Is there an Eni White coming out? But in the meantime, you have all these experienced beasts who have been lifting and playing against SEC talent for the last 2-3 years. So the D-line is super intriguing, and I've only really touched the starters. I just mentioned the guys behind them. Do I need to say anything about the recruiting class, the freshman class on the D-line that's behind those 4 guys I just broke down a little bit? So which of those guys are going to get the most burn? We've been hearing talks of this being a very deep rotation, maybe as deep as 12-man. 12-man defensive line rotation. It's like it's meant to be. But Who's going to play? Who's going to get most of those minutes? I don't know yet. Who's getting all the snaps? From what I've heard in camp, it's going to be Anthony Lucas, Shamar Stewart, Lavius Overton, Eni White maybe? But beyond that, we don't know about Walter Nolan. We haven't heard much about him. He's missed a couple of practices. We don't know much about some of these other guys. Those are the four guys we've been hearing are making waves. And look out for Gabriel Brownlow-Dindy, who's coming off of injury and should be healthy any day now. He might even be practicing this week. I mean, I think this guy was the most SEC ready to play, like right out the box. I think Nolan you kind of hoped would be, but he did drop about 25 pounds coming into College Station. So is he more of a hybrid edge guy? Is he more of a weak side guy? What is Walter Nolan now? He's a freak athlete, so he's going to get pressure wherever he's from, or he's gonna get movement wherever he's at. Dinosaur break. But yeah, D-line rotation. One more thing on the defense I'm looking for. I mean, this is pretty easy. We're just breaking down the position groups at this point. I mean, come on. We're going to talk about the linebackers. We're going to talk about the secondary. Okay, the secondary. I'm obviously drinking coffee. But the secondary. You have your big three. That's what I've coined them. I'm calling them the big three. You got Damani Richardson. You got Jalen Jones. And you got Antonio Johnson. You got three whole-ass men out there. They're men. They've been in the SEC 3 years. They have 3 years experience each. Is that true? Jalen Jones has 2 years of experience. Antonio Johnson has 3. Am I making this up? Why am I blanking on this? The point is, these guys are basically linebackers in the secondary. They're huge. And they're good. I know Jalen Jones had some growing pains, but that's part of transitioning from safety to corner. I think Jalen Jones at the next level is going to play wherever you want him to play. But he has had some learning curves in the man-to-man department. But I look for year 3. This is year 3 for Jalen Jones. My brain is coming back to me. Jalen Jones, I'm looking for him to be much improved this year on man-to-man coverage. I'm looking for him to play with a chip on his shoulder, to come in focused in, because there were a couple games last year, Mississippi State, where things didn't go his way. And I think he's coming in for a big revenge factor this year. Revenge factor is obviously a big theme this season. I mention it almost every video. There's a lot of revenge to be had, especially amongst that secondary, most of them are back besides one guy, Leon O'Neal. And then you have Antonio Johnson. I mean, take your pick. How many tackles is this guy going to have? I think he had 53 or 52 last year. Is he going to break the 60, 65 tackle mark this year? Maybe. Look out for that. I mean, how good can he be? He's gone. This is his last year. He might be a first rounder, so enjoy him. And then Damani. Damani has just been a model of consistency, of not really having a lot of bonehead blow-it plays, but also not having as many game-changing plays as you might like from a guy with his experience. So what I look for from Damani Richardson this year is big plays, game-breaking plays, interceptions, strips. We've seen him do both, just not at a very consistent level. And then just wreaking more havoc, being more of a ball hawk, being more of a guy that flies around. Now, it's great to have that safety net. He is a safety. But I think you'd like a little bit more playmaking from him, just a tad bit more. And I think we're going to get it. I think he knows what he has to do. And I think he's going to be the best we've ever seen. It only makes sense. He's been in, this is 4th year. So the big 3. I'll just coin this talking point as the big 3. And then the interesting part. The little 2. We're not going to call it that. Jordan Gilbert, Tyreek Chappelle, or I'm blanking on names here. Number 16, giant cornerback, Brian George. Who's going to play? It's going to be a rotation. I think they're both going to play. There have been a lot of injuries throughout camp at the corner position. The starters, besides this one corner position, have been pretty much healthy the whole camp. I think Jordan Gilbert and the big 3 have all been healthy the whole camp. I'll get to Jordan in a second. Who's going to get more minutes at this other corner spot? Who's going to play in crunch time? Is it going to be these 2, or is one of the impact true freshmen going to come in? I believe you're looking at one of these 2. Denver Harris has been hurt most of camp. Smoke Bowie has been hurt most of camp. And Smoke Bowie looks like a kind of guy you're probably going to want a red shirt. I'm not sure. He's just a little smaller from what I can tell, but it's corner. He could play. We'll see. Another intriguing spot. And that one's more of a rotational thing. I want to see who's getting the minutes, who's getting the snaps there. I say minutes like this is basketball. I guess it's minutes. Who's getting the snaps? Jordan Gilbert is someone that I'm extremely intrigued by. I'm extremely intrigued by what the coaches are saying about him, by his length, by his ball hawking nature, so to speak. That's what I've heard. That's what we've been hearing. That he's a ball hawk, a game changer, just an absolute menace out there. And I'm hyped to see it. He didn't start last year. He was in the rotation a bit. We didn't really get a full showcase of him because Leon O'Neal is like a leader on the field that you had to play, if only for leadership. And whatever deficiencies Leon may have had, I'm hoping Jordan clears it up. Should I go on a tangent about Leon? We love Leon O'Neal. Aggie for life. He's always welcome. He can come have dinner here anytime he wants. But, he had the bonehead play every now and then. But he made up for it with leadership and just his consistent, I don't want to say coach on the field, but let's just say hype man on the field. I liked it. It made the team have more swag, and the defense was freaking good with him out there. So, it's fine. We love Leon. But I want to see more steady play from this other safety spot. And big plays. I just want more. I'm freaking greedy. Okay. Talked about the safeties. Talked about the corners. Big three. Linebackers. Let's just see what Edge Cooper does. I want to see those freshmen, the Harrises, get in there. See what they can do, because apparently some of the guys who were like kind of in the middle ground maybe aren't doing so well. I'm hoping Andre White's healthy. He could be a big-time player. He's going to have to be. But I'm not sure what's happening with Terry and Lee and Chris Russell. We haven't heard much from them this camp. I'm hoping they're doing good. But I really want to see those two freshmen come in. And quick tangent on Edge Cooper. I mentioned him. He's going to make a name for himself this year, much like Antonio Johnson did last year and later in the year before that. He made a name for himself last year. Did y'all know? And I'm sure y'all know this, but in case you missed it, because I know I missed it on the first watch, in that Alabama game, when Alabama had the ball left and the game is tied, and A&M ended up getting the stop, but on that third down play, Edge Cooper got his hand on that ball. He actually blitzed, and then when he realized that there was no lane, he backed it out, and he tipped the ball. And who knows if that ball was accurate. He tipped it pretty close to the line of scrimmage, so it's hard to tell. But he got a hand on it, and the ball went dead. So this is the kind of guy that's, what I always say about him is that he is like a missile to the right place at the right time. Aaron Hansford was a missile to the wrong place at the wrong time a little bit too often. As athletic and as awesome as Hansford was, that was just something you had to live and die with him. Not Edge Cooper. Edge Cooper knows where he needs to be on the football field. He has a great sense of where to be at the right time. That covers the defense. I guess we should talk just every position group. We're going to talk about what to look for in every position group, okay? We're doing it. Sam Houston is going to let some of the younger guys play, but I'm talking about the starters right now, I'm really focusing on them. I think they all need to play a good 3 quarters, or at least 2 3/4 of 3 quarters. Math. Receivers. Who's the last starter? We think it's Chase Lane. It's probably Chase Lane, and it should be Chase Lane. It's going to be Chase Lane, right? But that's going to be something that we look out for, is that third receiver spot. Because we know Evan Stewart, Anais Smith. I think Evan Stewart is going to be your wide receiver 1. He's going to be your main guy. And Anais Smith is going to be your slot receiver. Plus. He's going to do other things too. I'll get to that three-headed monster situation in just a second, because there's one guy I haven't even mentioned yet who's probably our best offensive player. Can you guess who it is? It's Moose Muhammad. No, I'm just kidding. But the receivers. How much are we targeting Evan Stewart? Is Evan Stewart going to be the kind of guy that you can burn the whole game? Or, is his body not ready? He's a true freshman. And I know it's a position where you can have true freshmen play some serious minutes and have some serious impact, because they're going up against corners and not SEC linemen or linebackers for the most part. Is Evan Stewart an every down kind of guy? How many drives off will he need to take? I don't know how much you can just lean on a true freshman like that, but I think the Ags are going to really want to have him out there more often than not. Anais, as a receiver, I just want him to have steady hands. He's had a little bit of hands problems earlier in his career, some drops, some fumbles. but I feel like it's steadied up. I haven't really paid attention to it as in doing any research on it, but my feeling is that it got better last year in his drops and his fumbling. I feel like it wasn't an issue last year amongst the many issues we did have. I look for that to continue and elevate to the next level. And I just, Jalen Wademeier's gone. He was the safety valve. He was the guy that the quarterback could always rely on. And I want Anias to become that guy out of the slot with his route running and just consistent play. Wide receiver 3. Or I forget, XY. The less targeted edge receiver. It's going to be Chase Lane. He's reliable. He's been clutch in his career before. But I want to see who else they would throw out there for that position. And I know Jimbo has never really been a deep rotation at the receiver kind of guy. It's always been he has his guys and then like a sub. And I have a feeling that the sub for for Chase Lane is going to be Jalen Preston. But we've been hearing a lot about Yul Keith. Where's Yul Keith going to play? He just sounds like the kind of guy you want to get the ball to. And he might just be the spell for Anias, which is good because there are certain games where if you're winning, you don't want to play too much Anias because he's the kind of guy you want to save. Smaller dude. Don't get the mileage on him if you can help it. But where are we going to get Yul Keith serious minutes? Is it going to be in the 4 receiver packages? As I think on the fly right now, last year the 4 and 5 receiver packages typically featured Jalen Wademeyer as a receiver. And without that elite or experienced elite level tight end, maybe they slide in another receiver in the 4 receiver packages and you see more Yul Keith in the 4 receiver packages. Maybe we'll see some more 4 or 5 receiver packages since the tight ends are a little bit less experienced besides Max. So look out for that. That's all stuff I'm looking for at the receiver position. Now let's get to the good stuff. The stuff where we know A&M is going to be leaning offensively. 3-headed monster. And it all stems from the running game. It's going to be zone read or the threat of run between Anias, Haynes, and Achane. Triple option, screens, quick hitters, outside runs. And Achane has been a guy that's been proven in a backup role to be able to run between the tackles. In fact, I believe most of his runs have been between the tackles. Even his big runs, counters, just zones, and they just run a lot of between the tackle stuff with Achane, and he is really good at navigating those narrow areas. Smaller guy, if you get as much of an arm on him, he's probably going to go down. But he is just really good at navigating the holes that are barely even there, cutting and then hitting them. So I look for how they use the leverage of him to get Haynes and Anias involved in the running game. Because as I've said before, you don't have your 25 carry a game guy like you did in Isaiah Spiller. Now, can Achane get that? Probably. But I would argue that you wouldn't want most of those or a majority of those between SEC D linemen and SEC linebackers. I think you're going to want to match them up with safeties and get them outside and get them through where the hole is leveraged rather than have them go through some tighter spaces. So I look for those 3 guys to leverage off each other. I look for the threat of the run to clear these other guys up, the other of that trio up. And maybe Yul Keith is the kind of guy you can sub into that just to spell Anias. Maybe he's the kind of guy that runs option. Maybe can get a handoff out of the backfield every now and then. Maybe Yul Keith is just that Anias mold. We'll see. But those are my things to look for, and I know I went long. I might have to re-record this because I think where am I at? I'm at a long time. I don't even have a timer on here. But I've been talking too long. I got another segment to do this video, and you know what? At this point, I might just post this alone and just post a back-to-back video. Post a second video about the over-under stats. But until then, what are you guys looking out for? I think I covered everything. I wanted to mention like 2 or 3, but I just couldn't stop because I'm so hyped for this game and to see the team. Aren't y'all? One more dino break. But anyway, yeah, if y'all could like and subscribe, that would help me a lot. I really want to get this thing out there because I feel like I could generate a community for us to just talk football and I really want that. I know there's a lot of other YouTubers out there. Go support them too for Aggie football. But I just really want to create a community. I really want you guys to be involved. I want to see comments if you can. I want to see if y'all could name your biggest takeaway or your biggest thing you want to be looking for this game. I would love to hear it, and I would love to respond to you guys. I would love to start a conversation. Let's start a dialogue. But anyway, guys, I'm so excited. I know you are too. Couple days away, guys. Gig 'em.